podcast Repousser les limites. Votre animateur, JF Dussault, s'entretiendra avec des athlètes d'endurance et collaborateurs qui gravitent autour de la course en sentier et bien plus encore. Abonnez-vous, partagez l'épisode et bonne écoute.
Bienvenue à Repousser les limites. This week is a very special episode with the world elite biathlon athlete that start a fitness running club and multi-sport club in Ontario. He do have a lot of record on Strava back in the days. He still have a lot. So Dave McMahon, thanks a lot to accepting the invitation and welcome on the podcast.
You're quite welcome. Thanks for contacting me.
That's my pleasure. Thank you. So, Dave, how did the sport arrive in your life?
Well, in trail running, I always ran outdoors. I mean, I grew up in the country in a lot of cases. And then as I started doing things like cross-country skiing, for dryland training, we'd always be running on cross-country running courses and trails. So it was pretty natural. At the same time, I was doing road racing, but my first love was trails. But back in the day, I'm talking like 30, 40 years ago, there wasn't a lot of people that did trail running. I mean, it was mostly cross-country skiers and adventure racers and, other folks that did trail running, and mostly fast runners were doing roads. So over the period of probably a decade, we started building this community of trail runners in the National Capital Region in Ottawa-Gatineau. One, to have people to train with, and also then just to build the community and build races and things like that. And I think, as we discussed, previously, we've seen in the last 7 years trail running just explode in terms of racing. Which is fantastic because in the day it was like maybe a dozen people in a city that did trail running. And now we have a club of 3,000 people. There's multiple clubs in this particular area. I know where you live. There's a number of different really good clubs as well. So pretty much every major city and region tends to have trail running clubs, which is fantastic.
Yes, just go back 10 years ago in the sport, there was like 5 running club in Quebec, Ontario, maybe, for focus on trail running. But now, like you said earlier, the sport just explode. Did you see a lot of explosion with the biathlon tambien?
With biathlon?
Biathlon, yeah. Did you see a lot of expansion with cross-country skiing?
Well, we saw, so in biathlon, a couple of things. One is they have a summer biathlon series, which was running and shooting. So I raced in that. I raced in that internationally at a pretty high level. And what we'd race on trails. When we did that, race on trails, come back and shoot. And there's a whole circuit. Their whole circuit, and they also do it on roller skis. And so we also, with cross-country skiing, we'd always be training on trails or roller skis at the same time. With skiing, there was also an explosion of folks in this area. 30 years ago in the Ottawa-Gatineau area, there was probably maybe a dozen racers, 20 racers. Fast forward to today, we have about 6 or 7 major clubs, which are about 1,000 to 2,000 people each. So we have about 4,000 registered racers just in this region alone.
Wow.
Yeah, so just like cross-country running and trail running, cross-country skiing has completely exploded in this area.
Okay. So what was the first part that you do in your life?
The first sport? Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously I ran everywhere as kids do and played outdoors. And then, I got into a lot of different sports, everything from gymnastics to martial arts to skating. And then it wasn't until in competitive swimming, water polo and things like this. And then right up to university, I was training pretty hard in ice skating and figure skating.
Okay.
And that's an early development sport. So I ended up missing the boat per se when I went to university. I just wasn't able to compete anymore. So I transfer a lot of my time and effort in things like running. I was also shooting at the time, but doing marksmanship. Um, and I thought I was going to try to go to Olympics in a number of different sports, whether it's running or other things. But as it happened, I joined the Army, and the Army suggested biathlon, skiing and shooting, and running and shooting. So I ended up doing that, and that was my first time I got really serious into a sport, and that was probably in my early 20s, when I was training pretty much full on the sport of biathlon, which included things like obviously cross country skiing and then dryland training and shooting.
Okay, so you make a lot of progress on this. You told me earlier before we start the recording,
Yeah.
you are very near the Olympics level. You win
Yeah.
I think you were the best Canadian. You won some great contests.
Yeah, I mean, I was national champion in '94, and I tried to go to the '92 and '94 Olympics, and I just missed out twice. I think I was a fifth man in a four-man team on each one of those.
Oh,
So then and there's a lot of different reasons why that sort of occurs. And then so then after that, I also raced World Cup cross country skiing, and then also dabbled with raced the World Cup on the snowshoeing for national team and winter triathlons. And then I raced, at the time I did a lot of races in trail running, but there wasn't really any official. There was no official national team or anything like that. But you were doing, a fair bit of international racing and domestic racing in trail running and national championships. So pulling all that together, so there was probably like 4 or 5 different sports that raced at sort of a national team or world level. Always being a little bit just missing off the Olympics. The Olympics was supposed to be a demonstration sport for snowshoeing in 2010. That didn't happen. Winter triathlon, I was hoping that would be an Olympic sport soon, but it hasn't happened yet. So I'm pretty much aging out. I mean, I'm 59 years old, going to be 60 in a few months. So I'm sort of aging out on the Olympic stuff, but I'm still having a lot of fun racing in a bunch of different sports. And with trail running, it's just so easy. You just pick up a pair of shoes and go out the woods, and you're there. And it's so simple. Like if trail running and then snowshoeing is almost identical. You just throw a pair of snowshoes on and you're ready to go. And snowshoeing is almost a transitional sport to cross country skiing because it shares a lot of the same physiology. So I see a lot of the same sports as being very, very similar.
okay. So how did it happen that you start your club, the Natural Fitness Lab? How does this project happen?
Yeah, so as a cross country skier, I mean, we train trail running in the summertime and roller skiing. That was essentially my two things. Sometimes people do mountain biking and roller skiing as sort of to train for cross country, but I didn't have a lot of people to train with. I started training with other cross country skiers, but they weren't as fast as road runners. And so I wanted to be a better skier and a better runner. So I tried to convince more and more of my road running friends to come to the trails and train with me. And so we started this group, started a club, and initially it was to get training partners. And then they grew beyond that. And we started just building this community because we said, hey, it'd be really cool to have races. But in order to have races, trail running, I need trail runners. In order to have trail runners, I need to build a community. And that one thing led to the other. And then we just started building this trail running community in the area and then connecting with other communities and other cities to create a race series.
Okay. So how many people was there for your first year of your running club?
First year, probably a dozen.
Okay.
And then, so now we've grown over 30 years, growing to about 3,000, of which
Wow.
maybe 50 to 100 people show up at any practice.
Okay.
So you hope that not all 3,000 show up at the same time.
Yes. So did you what was the event that you came up with? It was event of trail running?
I'm sorry.
You said that you were organizing races with your running club?
Yeah.
So it was the event of trail running or?
Yeah, we do a bunch of different things. We did a bunch of adventure races. We did a bunch of local races in trail running,
Okay,
which
okay,
with various names, and then we created like virtual racing circuit.
okay.
Um, so and that worked out really well during the pandemic, where we would set courses. So we set
Of course.
21 races courses, and
Okay.
people like the Tour de France, and people did 3 a week for the period during the pandemic, and that was like really successful. And then when Strava came on, we've been
Yeah.
setting courses and segments and race circuits on Strava that then people can go and do it whatever they want. Um, so we ran the Eastern Canadian Mountain Running Championships. We ran the early National Trail Running Championships. We ran a bunch of different series, and then a bunch of our friends like here we have a Mad Trapper racing circuit. There's a number of
Mm-hmm.
different race circuits. There's I2P and a bunch of other ones that should show up in this area, and so and then a whole bunch across Quebec that there's just people now are organizing these things. So we're not organizing races so much anymore. We're essentially going to other people's races and helping them out.
Okay, okay, fine. So, are you one of the main coach of your running club?
Yeah, so my wife and I, so my wife is Lise Meloche, who's a biathlon, a 2-time Olympian, World Cup gold medalist in
Oh,
biathlon.
wow.
Yeah, so she's a real superstar. And so I introduced her to trail running. She was mostly a cyclist and a skier and biathlete. So together we've created Natural Fitness Lab, which is our club, which is a center of excellence for multi-sports, centered around things like trail running and cross-country skiing and snowshoeing.
Okay, okay. So you said there's a lot of similarities of trail running and snow, sh-
Shoot.
snowshoe,
Yeah, snowshoeing.
snowshoeing. So what's the similarities?
Oh, that's a great question. So snowshoeing it's a bit like trail running. Trail
Yeah.
running, let's say in sand or mud, but it's also like very similar to mountain biking. If you're climbing hills because you're having to stand up on the pedals and move, but it's also like skiing. It's like classic skiing, diagonal stride.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very similar sort of physiology, very similar movement, very similar power output
Yeah.
to all three. And in a lot of cases, if you go to a snowshoe event, you'll find that sometimes a mountain biker wins it, sometimes a runner wins it, sometimes a skier wins it. It's good for all sports. And so it allows you also as to transition from one to the other. So if I'm a runner and I want to ski, snowshoeing is great because what it can get me do is it gets me on snow, gets me slipping a little bit, I get very comfortable sliding and slipping. I get comfortable the way I have to push through the snow. I can't like push so hard. I have to way I need to lift my legs up and use my core muscles more. So it helps me transition everything I know from trail running into skiing and vice versa. As a skier, it helps me then keep my running legs for the springtime when I have to transition into trail
Okay.
running. So it's this really nice, area. So you go to a snowshoe race and there's people from all different sports there, and it's a very sort of organic, natural sort of experience.
Okay, okay. So what could looks like a normal year for you? Like in the winter, do you do trail running too? Do you combine sport? How is working for you?
Yeah, so it's really important to cross train. So I cross train within my sport. Let's say if I was skier, then I'd be doing a skate skiing, classic skiing, backcountry ski mountaineering, downhill skiing. And then I train slightly outside my sport, which is being snowshoeing, and which is a transition to trail running. But in trail running, I also do road running and I do track. So in the summertime, I'm doing track workouts for speed, like once or
Okay.
twice, at least once a week. Doing roads and gravel roads once a week for speed and tempo. And then I'm doing the typical trail running, hills and technical trails. In the wintertime, the two sports that are really good for trail running are snowshoeing and ski mountaineering, or ski randonnée or alpine touring.
Yeah.
So you see like people, so I do those as well. And they're also really good for skiing. So this means that there's no really jagged or edgy transitions between like one sport and the other. They all sort of blend really nicely together. So like for example, in trail running, I'll never be a really fast trail runner unless you do speed work. And so you got to do speed work and intervals, and you do that on the track. You also need to be able to do hills, so I'll do, big hills and
the main part.
Yeah. So, and hills too. Like I want to be able to be, do things from a 10K trail run to an ultra to like 50 or 80K. So like you still, like my sweet zone is around 15, 20K up to 30K, just because I don't have to eat a lot, in a 30K or in a 20K or 15K, I don't have to eat at all. 30K is maybe one banana, and one drink. When you get above that, then you're into like nutrition and managing your energy, and other things can happen. But I like to train all those distances. And what it means is you have to train speed, you have to train endurance, you have to do hills, you have to do a lot of different things if you want to be faster than 50K.
But I saw you did run a lot of it's one of the old races legend in Quebec. It's called Ultimate XC.
Oh, wait. Yes. Ultimate XC.
How does it was that race with the Vietnam and everything?
Oh, no, that is hilarious that you bring that up. So we were running very traditional trail races. So to be like a 10K, really fast, technical stuff, up to maybe 15K, maybe 20K, and I got a friend of mine come back, and I also and occasionally we race up the marathons. We do like mountain marathons. So that was the thing. You run a trail marathon. And I remember doing one in the United States called the Monster Marathon. It was supposed to be the hardest trail race in the Eastern North America. So, and there was things like Pike Peak and things like that. So you do things like this. Then I got a friend of mine came back from Quebec, and he said, "Oh, Dave, you got to do this race. Is crazy. It's called Ultimate XC." They said it's not even like a trail race. It's like it's like orienteering, adventure racing, crazy swamps and mud and mountains, and said you got to try it. So I said, okay, well, let's do it. So I got a bunch of friends together that were like top adventure racers, and we entered this thing, and it was like, I didn't even call it trail running. It was trail running, but it was also like adventure running. So you're going up mountains. That first one I think I did was at Tremblant. So it was like 4 summits of Tremblant, most of which was on trail, but a lot wasn't on trail. You're going up through the bush, going up ravines. There was one section that was like 2.5 kilometers up a river through swamps. We're falling on rocks. We're going waist deep up to or armpits deep in the swamps. And every year it got harder and harder. I mean, one year it rained so hard that, we used to joke. We said, it's like the only difference between obstacle racing and what we're doing is we only have one obstacle. It lasts 80K though. Because we were self-rescuing through mud. The mud was like ankle deep to knee deep, pretty much the whole race. And it took like sometimes 50K can take 4 hours. This was taking 8 hours for the winners. And we're just covered from head to toe in mud and cuts. So I mean, the racing went that way. Like for a while, it was like just crazy hard. And then so that was Ultimate XC. And that ran for a number of different years. And we did that. I did like 50Ks and 20Ks and things like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of legendary story here. That was a Mudfest festival.
Yeah, and then one year they decided to put an extra mountain climb in and didn't tell anyone. So we ended up at 50K. I crossed what I thought was the finish line, which was an aid station. I finished, second or something. And I was happy. I was like, yeah, I got really well, did really well. And then they look at me and said, no, it's not over yet. I said, what do you mean it's not over? I'm at 50K. Said, no, this is just an aid station. No, we put an extra mountain in it, another 10K. So like, what? So you said like, okay, you sort of reset. You say, okay, I just 50K. I've done that. So I just got to do 10K. So you just put in your mind, I just got to manage 10K. You load up on food and water, and you go up over the mountain, and it was super hot. It was hard, and you come down the other side, and you get to the next, what I thought was the finish. No, it was another aid station. They said, no, it's another 5K, and then it was another aid station. Oh, there's another 2K, there's another 2K, and it turned out to be, after a while, I was thinking, did I enter a 50 miler instead of a 50K? Like what's going on here? It was like 60 some odd K. But it was like that. I mean, and we also did one race, an adventure race. They did the same thing. We thought we crossed the finish line, and they said, no, we have another summit to do after that. So it was you didn't know what you're getting into in the early days. In a lot of cases, It was just sort of like, and it was a whole mix of different people that would show up to these things.
Okay. So have you done event like here, like that in US too?
Off and on. I've been racing mostly in Canada, simply because there's just so much racing here to do.
Yeah.
Everything from Trans-Charlevoix, Hurricane, Ultimate, or the QMT, and all the races in Bromont, all the races in Tremblant. Aix-les-Vallées. Aix-les-Vallées was a really good one. Yeah, for 3 days, that was like, that's a hard race to do.
Yes, of course. And then, have you done a lot on Ontario too?
A fair bit. Not as much. There's a couple really good races, like Limberlost is one that I really like. It's a different sort of race. It's single track, sort of fast, flowy around all the lakes in the area. So it's a really nice one. There's a lot of races, of course, in this area here with National Capital Region that we were doing. And then there's a whole bunch just road races as well. Like you can find in Ottawa area, you can find a race every weekend if you want. And a trail race every 1 or 2 weeks.
Yeah, I know Haliburton, it's like one of the major ones.
Yeah.
Sulphur Spring.
Yeah, Sulphur Springs, Haliburton. Those are all really good races to do as well. I'm also really lucky because we have some really strong trail runners and athletes in this area, my local area, and in my club. I mean, the women in our club, for example, are going to podium at Quebec Mega Trail and Hurricane like every year, and Bromont and Trans-Charlevoix and all these places, and same with the guys are going to be doing exceptionally well. I think we have for the women, I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4 women that are former national trail running champions. 2 of them, 3 of them on the Canadian team. Raced in World Cups, top 10. One of them used to be the world mountain running champion. And with the guys, a similar sort of thing, some like top racers. So the funny thing is that sometimes practice is more competitive than a race here.
Oh yeah.
Like when everyone shows up at practice, like we'll have 5 or a dozen really strong guys and girls. And but then on a weekend, if I go to a race, everyone's doing a slightly different race. So sometimes the races aren't as competitive as a Tuesday night practice sometimes.
Okay. But like just the men I know, like Eric Dehaye.
Yep.
There's Richard Turgeon.
Richard Turgeon, and then there's Maxime Leboeuf.
Of course.
Yeah, he's concentrating mostly on road running right now, road marathons.
But it's very fast, like 2 hour, 15 minutes, I think so.
Yeah. Fast trail runners. We also have a couple of 212, 215 marathon runners that run here. A number of like, fast 10K, 27, 28-minute 10K runners run in the area. And so, Maxim being like one of the faster trail runners, probably the fastest trail runner in the area, and in the country when he wants to be. So yeah, there's a lot of talent and a lot of young talent coming up for sure.
Okay. So have you run road marathon for yourself too?
I had a horrible running marathon. I've run half marathons.
Okay.
I've run half marathons all the time, and I run trail marathons all the time. The one road marathon I did, it just went really poorly. So I haven't really done. I tend to on road run half marathons, 10Ks and 5Ks.
Okay.
And then for anything above half marathon, I'm on the trails anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, the road marathons, I just find it's just a lot of pounding. I get a little bored. I'm also just do an ultra marathon instead.
Okay. Okay. So what was your favorite ultra marathon you ran?
Oh, goodness sakes. Well, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, I like Trans Charlevoix. That was a nice multi-day race. Quebec Mega Trail, certainly Ultimate XC. Some of the races in Tremblant, the Solomon series in Tremblant was sort of cool. There's the Mad Trapper here in Ottawa.
Yeah.
That's a really nice race. In fact, I actually like the 30K more than the 50 because it's a 20K or 21K on gravel roads and then 10K trail, really hilly technical trail. So it mixes the two. And then this locally, there's some really cool like ultramarathon sort of courses that we've done here. Again, I try to race like one ultramarathon a year, and then the rest I doing like 20, 30, 15Ks. Because
Okay.
I like racing most weekends. But if you do an ultramarathon, you can't race that often. You have to take a lot of time off. So
Yes.
like it takes a lot out of the body. So you have to be careful how many ultras you do in a season.
Yes, of course. So what you think is the best advice you could say for being competitive for long term in the sport?
Oh, one, cross training, like doing different sports.
Yeah, yeah.
Like cross training within your sport. Like if it's just running, make sure you're doing track, a bit of road, like flat stuff, country roads, also hills. Change up the distance, like 10Ks, race longer a bit, train longer. So don't just do the same thing. Like don't just like go long all the time, or don't just do intervals all the time, or don't just do track all the time, or just do like trail. Mix it up. And then also like flexibility, like work on the flexibility, work on strength,
Mm-hmm.
because they become limiting factors. Like preventing injury for is super important, because if you race a lot of times and train all the time, you just end up racking up more and more injuries: Achilles, plantar fasciitis, hamstring pulls, things like that. So the more you can do, the better, in terms of strength, flexibility. And then in the wintertime, like take a bit of a break, like do ski mountaineering, do snowshoeing, do cross-country skiing. Also, I still run trails, but like maybe 3 times a week, but in a maintenance mode. So you want to keep your trail running up. So you don't want to just stop trail running and then altogether. You want to keep a certain amount of running going, but you don't want to be doing hard running and racing all year round running, because it's hard on your body to do that. So those sort of things, consistency, body maintenance, cross training, super important.
Okay, and that's very true what you said, because if you look like the Kilian Jornet, you can see he makes a lot of sport together too. So
Yep.
okay, so what's your new favorite sport now? Like you talk about the skiing uphill
Oh,
skiing.
skimo, skimo and
Skimo,
alpine
yeah.
tour. I do like skimo, for certain. I like multi-sport. Like if you like a winter triathlon, or versions of the winter triathlon. So that could be, ice skating, skiing, snowshoeing, mixing those things up. Sometimes, triathlon will be like in Tremblant, the winter triathlon there was running, like running in snow, and then skiing and then snowshoeing. The winter triathlon in Ottawa is ice skating, running, skiing. So I like events that are mixing those, and then also like winter duathlon, so like skiing and running or skiing and snowshoeing. So when you mix those sports together, they're pretty cool. And then like pentathlon, like doing things like um, your cross country skiing, your snowshoeing, you're doing ski mountaineering, you're doing a bit of running. Mixing all those things up together, I think is pretty cool.
Okay. So, do you coach people personally too?
My wife and I do, yes. Generally speaking, I create more of the group training, and
Okay, okay.
my wife does the helps with that and leads it, but also does the personal coaching and small group coaching. And she has a number of different clients from different sports, adventure racing, obstacle racing, trail running, skiing, triathlon, and pro cycling. So
Okay.
she does a lot of the personal coaching and training for that.
Okay, okay, cool. So, have you done a lot of adventure race?
Not a huge amount. I mean, we do a lot of venture running,
Okay, okay.
which for sure. Like we take the group out and like we're doing, I guess, expedition type running. I started with a bit of adventure racing. I raced a couple of formal races, and then we created our own sort of series for a couple of years. But I train with adventure racers that do it all the time. So I'm very familiar with their training, very familiar with what they go through, and I share parts of it. But I haven't gone like that's a whole other level of commitment. Like if you're an adventure racer doing all those different things, like, that's life, that's your life.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
that being said, if they put together an adventure race of all the different sports I do, I mean, I'd be fine. But there you're doing, biking and canoeing I would have to add more of that into my
I,
routine to do that.
okay, okay. Have you done a lot of like uh like race in Yukon, for example, or I know there's a
Yeah,
long ultra
yeah,
marathon up there.
yeah. I have not. I have a couple friends that did. Ray Zahab raced there. I think he won it one year. I had a couple other friends that raced there. Um, I typically I have stayed to more of I would say, the 15, 30K type races and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
locally, because I sort of like the speed. I personally like the very technical courses, a lot of speed involved in the courses, as
Okay.
opposed to expedition racing. That being said, as I did participate in Grand to Grand Ultra, I was there as a embedded cameraman. So I sort of raced or ran with the teams over a period of a week. So the multi-day stage racing is sort of interesting. And I did Trans Charlevoix the year before last, so 3 day, and then Trans Valais. So like 3 day racing is sort of cool as well, because you
Okay,
have
okay.
still has a certain amount of momentum.
Yeah.
Um, but I have a lot of friends that are doing like 100 milers, like up to like 300 kilometers, and then the expeditions, which are like thousands of kilometers, and that's a whole other game.
Yeah, yeah, of course. So you're more focused on the speed races.
Yeah, sort of like 30K, 20K, 15K. Those are nice because they're 1 to 2 hours, and so they have a lot of like fast momentum to them. And once you get above that, I do like ultra racing, but when you get above that, you're now into your pace has to slow down. You have to manage your energy. You have to other things can happen. Like you can run out of energy. You have nutritional challenges. you can get injured. You know, you get things like that. And I still like the speed associated with some of the shorter races.
So have you ever tried the vertical kilometer?
I've tried versions of it, yeah. So I've tried a number of different places. In BC, we had a couple of vertical kilometer races. I did one at Tremblant, I think. I did one in Mont Saint Anne. And then here we do, and then there's all the segments. So typically what happened, like I've done the races. Now they tend to be more of a younger man's game, because they're just power and like just going. That being said, there's some longer climbs, certainly with KOM. So I've been playing around on Strava, just going after, King of the Mountain, segments in various mountains around Canada, and here in the area. So I'll tackle those for sure. So I that's when I find like I don't need to race too much, because those are almost like permanent race courses, and you go there and the people who have done them are fairly highly contested. Like I did gross grind out of BC. I've done,
that's one of my favorite in Canada.
Yeah. So, and then there's a bunch of other ones we used to do back when there was no Strava. So it's like fastest known time. And same with Lake Placid. Some of the summits in Lake Placid I'll do, and obviously Tremblant, Mont Saint Anne, Mont Saint Marie here. So all those sort of KOMs you sort of go after, test yourself.
Yes, you have talked a lot about this, but when I first arrived on Strava in 2014, 2015, I saw a lot of the King of the Hill, Dave McMahon. I was like, who is this guy? I saw around my area, I saw Dave McMahon, and I saw Alistair Gardner. But Alistair Gardner is like the king of the area, so I was okay, that's normal. Alistair. But what's who this guy is? Dave McMahon. So I was very curious, and I remember like Alistair said, it's like a biathlon elite athlete. He like a lot to beat the challenge of the other guy.
Yeah, and it's saying it's getting harder. Like I wish I had set like all these set records when in my 20s, because it was Strava didn't come on board until I was in my 40s, or late 40s, and so at almost 60, it gets harder to go after segments. And the competition, like there's better trail runners now. People are faster, because they've had chance to train it more. They've had better training partners. They've been better competition. So, now it's going back, and, you go back and try again, and you have to do, it gets harder, but it's also more interesting. I mean, you certainly have more competition. When you first started, like, 30 years ago, you could run to the top of a mountain, call it a fastest known time, and you're not going to get challenged for a decade. Now, you're going to get challenged. If you do that, you set a new course record, you're going to be challenged that later that day.
Yes, possible, of course.
Yep.
And just the fact there's a lot of more people that are trail running and all those sport too, that are more famous. There's more competition and everything.
Yeah. The other thing that's happening is that, I mean, back, 30 years ago, ultra running was something that, people, if you weren't super fast in a marathon, you did an ultra marathon, and trail running, it was like, well, if you don't really fast as a runner, you do trail running, but that's not true anymore. I mean, you're not going to medal like in a major race in trail running unless you're running you run a 1:10 half marathon, 1:05 half marathon pace on the road. If you're it's not uncommon to have Olympic marathoners now contend for ultra marathons. I mean, you got to be I mean, looking at the speeds of the winners in 50Ks, they're putting marathons down in like 2:15, 2:18. You have 3,000 meter Olympic steeplechasers now, like doing like really fast 20K, 15K trail runs. So it is no longer the case. I mean, it's moving up. You look at UTMB, you look at Kilian Jornet, you look, 100 kilometers and below, you have to be a pretty fast runner to be medaling at a lot of the major races anymore. So it's no longer, so you got to do speed. Like a lot of these guys are doing speed workouts. They're fast on the roads, they're fast on the trails. And also what we're seeing the other way, we're seeing some of these trail runners win road races. Certainly in this area. So the faster runners in this area in particular do both. They trail run and road run, and they do track.
Yeah, but because it's like the two held for the other.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I remember when I started trail running, I saw a little flat, a little uphill in Ottawa Marathon. Every people were breaking up there at 32K, but I was like, hey, that's fine for me. So
yeah. When road runners say, hey, look at that hill that road race was hilly, or as a trail runner, you're going like, that's not a hill. You didn't have to hold on to trees and use your hands.
Exactly. So what are you the more proud of it of your career as an athlete now at the moment?
I guess it was winning the World Masters Championships in cross country skiing 2 years ago in Canada. So I trained really, really hard leading up into that, and just be able to do that on home soil was, and my wife won as well. So that was a pretty special moment. Have my daughter standing on top of the biggest climb in the middle of a snowstorm as I sort of crested the top with the lead in the race. That was knowing that I just had to make it back to the finish. That was a pretty special moment. After a lot of years' work, to be able to do that. I think that's the most recent sort of very satisfying moment. And I'm sort of looking forward. Like I tend to, it's interesting when you have a career, I tend not to look back. We're always looking forward in terms of what's the next adventure, what's the next challenge that we can do. Certainly, like I turned 60 next year, so next season. So I'm hoping to race national cross country, cross country running, trail running, and skiing, as well as a masters at the open level and the masters. So, and hopefully on the road, see if I can get some close to, see where I can go in terms of some age group records. But in order to do so, I train with my training partners are all like 25-year-olds, and we have a very young, sort of vibrant, fast group, very, very fun group to be with. And I always tell people I see my spirit age is 33 years old. And hopefully I'll just be in the sport for a long time, just being able to, being competitive, but also just be able to contender and being able to participate in the sport, and then look at different adventures in the sport.
Okay. Excellent. So how do you train your mindset before a race, a competition?
Very simply. I mean, it's complex, but it's simple. I train like I'm racing. So like on Tuesdays I do higher intensity intervals with the team, or time trials, and threshold. And then on Saturdays, we're doing a time trial every Saturday, or high tempo. The rest of the days are a variety of different types of exercise. We have long distance workouts and other stuff, but at least twice a week, I'm in a highly competitive environment, as if it's a race. So when I come to the start line of a race, there's no uncertainty. Like I know what I know how my body's going to act. I know generally how everyone else is going to perform. I know how I'm performing at that time. So, that I think really helps to go into a race going, I know exactly how this is going to go down.
Yeah.
There could be people that show up that you don't know for sure, like especially younger folks that I've never seen race before. But I sort of know how my body is going to react to the event and how it's going to sort of play out. So that in terms of preparation is super helpful. So the planning that goes in, the execution around the training, in a lot of cases, as I mentioned before, I like to train harder than a race, so that when I come to a race, I can actually, have some time to enjoy the event. And then, race within your means, and just really enjoy the experience. So I think, more and more I'm not so anxious about a race anymore. I'm more like, that the race becomes more the present or the gift to myself for the training that I've done.
Okay. Okay, so what's the major mistake you can see from the newcomer, new trail runners?
I guess the two biggest mistakes that I see, one is, on one hand, people that just like run medium well all the time, long distance. They just they think it's all about miles. They think if they run longer, they'll get faster. I mean, at a certain point they will, and then they'll plateau. So putting too much miles on. And then there's the other extreme where they don't do anything all week, and then they try to put it all on the weekend. So it's like binge training. And I think one is, so the two things, you really want consistency, and then you want some diversity and periodicity in your training. And you want to stay within, so you can run not enough. So if you're not running, most days, probably not enough to really be consistent and avoid injury and improve. If you're running too much, if you're running more than 12 hours a week, or some cases 15 hours a week, and you're putting in more than hundreds of kilometers, like if you're running more than 100 kilometers a week, then you got to be careful. If you're running more than 140 kilometers a week, then you have to be very careful. Typically, like elite marathon runners won't be more than 12 hours a week of running. So you tend to want to cross train, get on a bike, do other things. So usually the two biggest mistakes are the two extremes: running too much or too little. If you're doing 8 hours to 12 hours a week, 10 hours a week of running, and you're mixing it up, different types of running and intensities, you get one distance run a week, one intensity run a week, you're probably going to do okay.
Okay. So, have you done a lot of training, muscle training, to help you for a better runner or better skier?
For skiing, there's a fair bit of strength training, both specific strength in terms of like double poling and legs only and things like this, but also in the gym, upper body gym workouts, lower body workouts, things like that, like split squats and things like this. For trail running, I do in the gym. I get a lot of strength training from running hills, uphill and downhill, for sure. So most of the strength training for the lower body in the gym is more trying to balance the muscles out. So it's more about like split squats and making sure my knee aligns properly, that I don't have any over or under development of muscles, things like that. And then I'm also then in the gym doing upper body work, because you don't get to do a lot of upper body work when you're running. So I want to balance that. And same with core, doing a lot of core work, in the gym, and then flexibility, range of motion, being pretty important.
Okay. So, at the point you are now, what is your next challenge in your career?
I think, well, I like, as I mentioned, at turning 60, there's some age group records and races I'd like to be doing. but also like most of my stuff is not age group focused. It's really around, they're still trying to do well overall. I think I want to do a number of select races from ultra marathons down to 10Ks. See if I can overall maintain that speed. I'd like to be able to do that. A lot of it, in this particular case, in my particular case, is injury prevention.
Yeah.
So number one has to be your health, which includes injury prevention. Number 1, 2, maintaining your strength, maintaining your speed and power. Super important, because endurance, as you age, you can still do endurance, but you really got to work much harder at maintaining your speed and power. So I want to be able to do certain that. And then just I want to pick and choose some of the races I want to be doing. Some are going to be like national level races, but then also some destination races that I maybe haven't done before that are just going to be really, really nice adventures. Because I spent a lot of my youth doing races because I had to. I had to do Canada Cups, I had to do World Cups, I had to do selection races, I had to do qualification races. And now it's like, I don't really need to do that anymore. So it's like, there's some races that I haven't done because I haven't had a chance, but they look like really cool races to do it, really good experiences. And then being able to do that with a team, they bring a whole team there and you share that experience, or set adventures for yourself as well, and that as a team. So those are sort of the things that I'm looking at to do in the next year.
Okay, so what is the place to follow your running group, Natural Fitness Lab?
Yeah, so naturalfitnesslab.com is our website, but then we our Facebook page where we do a lot of discussion is Natural Fitness Lab Facebook page. Then we have the group, which is called Natural Fitness Lab Group, that folks are welcome to join. The trail running is free during the summertime, so we welcome anyone to come if they're in the Ottawa-Gatineau area, to just drop into our trail runs, run at least twice a week. Right now we're skiing and snowshoeing throughout the week as well, and people are welcome if they're in the area to check us out. A lot of folks now that follow us don't necessarily live in the area, but they like to follow what we do or some of the advice we give and some of the training programs, and then they can take that home and they can follow along wherever they are in trail running.
Okay, nice. So what you want to give to the new generation of runners now?
Oh, I'd say that there's huge amount of opportunity now compared with 30 years ago. There's so many different events, and I would encourage everyone to try all different types of trail running events, whether that's a 10K or an ultra marathon, including doing some orienteering or races and some adventure races and some like different versions. And then in the winter times, try snowshoeing and cross country skiing. Like just don't be afraid to try different things. Don't run alone, but also run with a group. Find a great trail running group in your area. That's going to really help you improve in your sport. It's also going to really give meaning to what you're doing and the support that you need to go to these events and train.
Okay, so what is the best place for follow you? The Strava, I bet.
Well, you can follow me personally on Strava, but also our Facebook group. On Facebook, both personally, I guess my Facebook profile, I post stuff there. And if you want to reach out, you can reach out to me there or by email or from our website. I'm easy to find online. And whether you have questions or you want to join the group or you want to join the Facebook groups, that's where you reach me at.
Yes, just one thing I need to say. When I was doing my research for you, I saw the dog trainer, Dave McMahon, so that's not you.
Oh, yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah, he's always getting blamed for things I do. Yeah,
Wow.
that's not me. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So thanks a lot, Dave, for your time, and thanks for being such an inspiration for a lot of you in the sport and to help the community, like in Ottawa region.
Yeah, you're quite welcome. Thank you for reaching out, and we have to go running together now.
Yes, of course. I'm gonna try to reach out to join your group one day, of course.
Yeah, and we'll be in Bromont. We come to Bromont every year as well.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, for the
Okay.
Bromont Ultra and for a training camp.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. So perfect. We'll see you up there. So thanks a lot.
Okay. Thank you, AMAC.